Michael and I connected because I was doing 30 days of prayer in New Orleans. He had an initiative going on in Baton Rouge. And then as we started talking, I was like, this guy's amazing, man. He's got these things that he's doing with businessmen, raising up businessmen. It's everything that we're wanting to do here, that we're doing. Michael went with us to the summit. The summit is Transform Our World, like just for leaders. It's a small group that it's by invitation. I invited Michael. Michael came at the last minute. And two of the big guys, the big guns is Chuck Proudfit and
Steve Chua.
Steve Chua. They are directors of this program. I introduced Michael to them, and then they wouldn't let Michael alone. Eating every meal with them, connecting with them. They're real great businessmen. And so they were just as impressed with him as I knew he would be impressed with them. So it's a wonderful connection. But I want to turn it over to you, Michael, and tell us about yourself and what you're doing in Baton Rouge.
Thank you, brother. So first, I don't know very many on the call. I got to meet Leon at the summit as well, so we got to know each other a bit. I'm gonna share a little bit about my journey, but you guys know it's not about us. It's not about me. I'm gonna share my journey, but what I've been able to do, what God has brought me through, is only because of Him and His grace. And He's given me a testimony to share, to help people, not just tell people about my journey, but to help each individual person that I come into contact with their journey. And so that's what God often does in our lives. When He brings us through things, He's equipped us to go out and share that with others to help them along their journey. So that's just really what I hope to do today. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in Baton Rouge, the Jesus Alliance, the name of our ministry in Baton Rouge, and what we hope to do all across the country. But before that, I'll share just a little bit, and I'm going to move quick because I've got hours of heart to pour out, and I've got now 8 minutes and 56 seconds to do it. Because I want to honor
10 to 15 minutes. You got 10 to 15.
So I'll begin. I'll tell you quickly. The first time I remember understanding or feeling the presence of God, I was about 5 years old. I was sitting on a swing set outside of my house in Pride, Louisiana, central Zachary area. For any of you that are in the area and maybe know where that is, it's a little small country town back then. I'm sitting on the swing set. It's a beautiful day, and I'm swinging, high like a carefree kid does, and I'm singing a song to one of my favorite shows at the time, Greatest American Hero. And the words of the song are, "Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free, and flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could believe it's just me?" And so I'm singing this song, and I remember the presence of God for the first time in my life, like He was swinging next to me, and I felt His love. I grew up Catholic, and I loved God. I've always loved God. I've always had this deep understanding of what was right and what was wrong, but I didn't really understand what it meant to have a true relationship with Him until much later in life. I was a typical, I think, probably, unfortunately, as many get into college, I kind of became a bit of a wayward son. I still loved the Lord. I still knew what was right and wrong. I just made choices that to do what I wanted to do. And so I went through this period of 8 or 10 years in my life where everything looked fine from the outside. I wasn't out there, doing crazy, too crazy things, committing crimes, that kind of thing. But I wasn't right with the Lord, and I wasn't treating everybody around me, excuse me, the way that they deserved and needed to be treated. And one day I'm hunting. I'm up in a deer stand, and it's like 55 degrees outside, and it's a blue sky and a big green field in front of me. And it's a Thursday, and I'm in this deer stand, and I looked out, and it was so beautiful. And I just said, "Lord, thank you for putting me here today and allowing me to be here." And when I said those two words, when I said, "Lord, thank you," those three words, it opened a door that hadn't been opened in a long time. And the Lord immediately showed me all of the sin that was between he and I.
Wow.
I dropped to my knees in the bottom of this deer stand. I went from Lord, thank you to on my knees in 5 seconds, and I'm crying.
Wow.
And I said, Lord, keep in mind, most of these sins were years and years before, but the Lord just like a movie, like a clip, like a film clip, showed them all to me.
Wow.
And I repented. I said, Lord, I lay it at your feet, and I ask your forgiveness. And whatever you want of me, I'll do. And I gave my life to Christ in that deer stand. And then everything began to change and everything began to transform. And you fast forward now a number of years, and it's June 29th, 2012. And I'm wrestling. It's about 1 a.m. It's a Friday night, and I'm wrestling with this silly question. God had blessed my business. I grew a consulting company from 4 or 5 people when I joined it to over 230 people. I was one of the founders of the organization. We kind of merged 2 companies together and then built it. And God had really blessed this thing, and I thought I would do it for the rest of my life. And I'm laying in bed, June 29, 2012, and I'm having a conversation with the Lord about whether or not I should buy a new truck. I had a 12-year-old pickup truck, but I wanted a new truck. This thing had a cassette deck and it was old school, right? And I just wanted a new vehicle. So I'm saying, Lord, am I being a bad steward over what I have if I go get rid of it and buy something that I really don't need? And the Lord rebuked me and he said, that's not your problem. Your problem is you're not all in. Your problem is that you are trusting in the provision that I've given you as your comfort and your security instead of in me as your provider. I'm your provider. This is an area of your life that you've got to surrender to me. You have to trust me to be your provider because I want to set you free. I need you all in.
Wow.
And there are millions. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I would try to sleep, the Lord would wake me up, and I got a notepad, and he said, write it down, and I would write notes. And that night, he basically poured vision out to me, and he said, there are millions of others all over this country that, like you, they love me, they believe in me, but they're not living completely for me. And I want you to go and do something about it. I didn't, of course, understand at all what that meant. I got up the next morning. I went, I'll abbreviate this story. I went to a local donut shop. The Lord had me give a stranger my truck. Holy Spirit began to speak to me and said, this man's broken down in the parking lot. I brought you here for a reason. Give him your truck. And I said no and tried to fight it for a while. And then eventually the Holy Spirit was so loud that I gave the man my truck. And within about 3 months, he told me to go to my business partner and give him a year notice and let him know that I'd be leaving the organization, selling my stock to fund a ministry called All In to go and share this message that he had given me. It didn't go at all like I thought it would go. It was very difficult. First thing we did when we sold the company was we took some money aside and set it aside and made it a safety net, right? And it was substantial safety net. So we put this amount of money in the ministry and we kept the safety net over here. Well, the first thing that God did was he used the money much more quickly than we thought it would be used. And it came time to make a decision on whether God was my provider or not, or was I going to trust in my safety net? So my wife and I, after lots and lots of prayer, we gave the safety net. 2014, couple of years into the ministry, God's doing some things. I'm sharing testimony. I would often I know I'm not all in. I'd go speak in a church. I know I'm not all in, but now what? What do I do? What do I do with that? How do I live that out every day? I didn't fully have those answers. The Lord was still working on me and teaching me on my journey. But people were moved by the message. In 2014, I was struggling with fear. And one night the Lord gave me a dream. And in this dream, my wife and I are pulled up to a gas station in a pickup truck. Or in my Jeep, and we're kind of looking through the parking lot, and there's this red ice cream truck parked catty-cornered in front of us like this. And we can see there's 2 windows in the back doors of the ice cream truck, and I can see inside, and I can tell that there's a child who is being held in the back of the truck.
Mm.
And so I jump out of the Jeep and I run over and I expect the doors to be locked. This is important. And I go to grab the doors and I don't expect them to open, but they opened very easily. The doors did. And sure enough, there's this child and he's chained, shackled in the back of this pickup truck. He's being held captive by someone. And I'm trying to pull on the chain and get him free, and he won't. I can't get it off. It won't come free. And this child, I realize after a minute, is despondent, like not even struggling to be set free, not aware of the fact that I'm there, not happy that I'm there trying to set him free. And the truck begins to move. And as the truck began to move, this urgency came over me. I knew that time was short. I feel that feeling in my heart every day that I felt in that dream, that time is short. I jump out of the back of the ice cream truck and I run over to confront the driver, whoever's taken this kid captive, and I bang on it. And I have fear in me that I'm about to be in this confrontation. And then I look up and I see that look, that's my alarm, Dean. My
Keep
alarm just
going.
went off. All right, I got 4 minutes and I'll wrap this up, so I'm under our time. So I look up and it's an adolescent child driving the truck. And the instant I saw this adolescent child, I knew that I didn't have anything to be afraid of. The Lord showed me the driver of this truck because he wanted me to understand that he's in control. Okay. And then a couple of other things happen in the dream. But to get to the point here, I wake up and I work to figure it out, because that's what I do. I try to figure it out. And the Lord immediately said, let it go. I'll give it to you when it's time. That was difficult, but after about 30 minutes, I let it go. I had a busy day ahead, so it helped me. So I'm driving now from Gonzales to Baton Rouge to go to the bank for the ministry to make a deposit. And on my way back home, driving down Airline Highway, Dean, God gave me a download of the dream in an instant. It was as if he took his finger and touched my brain, boom, and gave me everything. There was no figuring it out. There was no, well, I wonder if this, it was just there. It wasn't there, and then it was there.
Wow.
And the Lord did that for me because it's what I needed at the time, because I was working hard to be faithful, but I was terrified. Did I make the right decisions? I gave up all of this money. Have I done the right things for my family? Maybe that wasn't God speaking to you. Maybe that was just you and your self-ambition. All those things the devil tells us to distract us and get us off track. So the Lord gave it to me in a way that was undeniably him. And here's what he showed me about this dream. The ice cream truck is a vehicle to attract. Okay, that's what ice cream trucks do. They got the stickers and they got the sound, and they drive through a neighborhood and they attract. The Lord had given me a testimony, a message to attract, a vehicle to attract. I didn't have to be afraid of the enemy. Satan was driving that truck, and he showed me Satan as an adolescent child because he's got no power over what God's plan is for my life or for your life or anyone else's life. Satan has no power.
That's right.
And so I didn't have to be afraid. The child in the back of the truck is the American Christian. Because Satan has many of them captive, distracted, living for the American dream, living for all kinds of things instead of what God has for their life. And if you hear nothing else from me today, I want you to understand that what God has for you is better. No matter what you've accomplished in your life up to this point, the life and the dream that God has for you is better, but we have to be all in. We have to be willing to give up the life we have to step into the life we were born to live. And so I understood that day that my life, my message, what God was calling me to do was to solicit a choice from believers. Because a day after I told a friend that story, he said, did the child get out of the back of the truck? And it bothered me because I didn't see the child get out of the back of the truck. And so I went to the Lord in prayer, and the Lord said, that's right, son. Not everybody gets out of the back of the truck because they have to choose.
Wow.
they have to choose. You have to choose to be surrendered moment by moment, day by day, and allow the manifest presence of God to rest upon you and be with you everywhere you take a step, in your family, in your sphere of influence, in the marketplace. So what we as a ministry are doing now in Baton Rouge is we're working with local business leaders to launch them into their what we call micro-ministry, to have the Ekklesia step forward into their sphere of influence in their world and right every wrong and make a difference everywhere that God's placed them. We want them to understand their identity. We want to help them understand exactly what they were born to do, and then we want to bring them into community to do it. And we're believing that God is going to do that in Baton Rouge. We're believing God's going to do that in New Orleans, and we're believing that God's then going to allow that to go all across this country. So with that, Dean, I yield the floor, brother.
That's awesome. That's so good. Thank you. You know, I mean, I was just listening to this for the first time and like, oh, this is so God. You know? Let me ask you a question. So in the name of your empowerment of the business men and women that you're working with, just give us a basic outline of what that process is. I know you just developed it.
Perfect. Yeah, no, it's perfect. So God does what God does. He brought an amazing gentleman named Chuck Coker into our path, and Chuck is gifted in building curriculum and in understanding. You know, he's developed spiritual gifts assessments, behavioral assessments over the years, all across the world. God put us into contact with him. And so what we do is we do a kickoff call, much like the one we did last week, and we establish some vision. Then in week 2, we have our individuals take a spiritual assessment and a behavioral assessment. Some of that, you guys have probably taken spiritual gifts assessments before, but what Chuck does is he takes your spiritual gifts and he brings them into clusters to help you not just understand your individual gifts, but how they work together to then allow you to go into the world and apply them. The next piece is the behavioral assessment, helps you understand your mental approach, your behaviors, how your environment over the years has been used by God, right where he's placed you, to condition you to activate the gifts that he's given you, to then allow you to apply them. And so we have them take the assessments. Then in week 3, the real hard work begins, and we lead about a 4-hour session. It's a half-day session, Dean, where we go through and help each person interpret those results, help them understand how to apply it, and we begin to help them build what we call a mission statement. What Transform Our World does is a little more in depth, and it's a transformational life plan. What I would consider, what we do is a bit like an incubator. It's a 5-week program where people graduate once they submit their mission statement, and then we bring them into an online community to continue to communicate and work together. It's a 5-week program. It's an incubator, whereas the Transform Our World plan, the Accelerator, is a 14-week plan, and it's much more in-depth. So I would consider what we do really a feeder. I hope personally that many of the people that we go on to put through our 5-week program graduate and step into the Accelerator for that more in-depth learning.